What would you do if the man you served every day, the blind man you cared for, was never blind at all? He saw everything, from the women who disrespected him, to the one woman who truly loved him. This is the story of a billionaire who pretended to be blind. Just to test love, don't forget to like, share, and comment if you enjoy stories like this. Here's how it all started. Daniel was a man with everything: money, a mansion, expensive cars, and respect. But there was one thing missing in his life: true love. He didn't want a woman who loved his money. He wanted someone who would love him for who he was, not for what he had in his bank account. But after being used and heartbroken by different women, Daniel made a strange decision. He would pretend to be blind. Yes, blind. He told everyone that he had lost his sight. No one suspected a thing, not his staff, not his friends, not even the women who came into his life after. He started wearing dark glasses all the time, even inside his house. He carried a long white walking stick and moved around slowly like a man who couldn't see anything. He changed his steps, kept his eyes distant, and never reacted to anything happening around him. The whole act was perfect. People felt sorry for him. Women became interested, not out of love, but out of curiosity, drama, or pure greed. What they didn't know was that Daniel could see everything, every eye roll, every fake smile, every side comment. He was watching, silently. He wanted to test the hearts of women. Would they still love him if they believed he couldn't see them? Would they still respect him if he didn't seem powerful? Would they stay when it felt like he had nothing to offer except his name? Over the next few months, women started coming. One by one, each with her own sweet voice, pretty dress, and perfect smile. They said the right things, at first. "I don't mind if you're blind," one had said, holding his hand. "Love doesn't care about sight," another one whispered. But Daniel stayed calm. He listened, but never trusted too quickly. Deep down, he wanted just one thing: to find the one woman who would treat him right, even if she thought he had nothing left. While the world changed around him, one person in that house remained the same: Amaka, the maid. She was soft-spoken, respectful, and hard-working. She never acted like anything changed when the news of his blindness broke. She didn't treat him with pity or fake concern. She just did her job, quietly and carefully. She helped him dress up in the mornings, brought him warm food, placed things where he could easily find them, and adjusted his pillow when she noticed he wasn't sleeping well. When guests laughed too loudly or mocked his condition in private, Amaka defended him. "Be careful how you speak," she once told one of the visiting girls. "He's still the man of this house." Daniel heard her, and it stayed with him. She didn't know he was watching, but he was. Daniel began noticing the little things she did. The way she folded his clothes neatly, even though no one was checking. The way she waited for him to eat before clearing the table. The way she quietly dropped extra sugar cubes in his tea because he once coughed after taking a bitter sip. But Daniel didn't fall for her immediately. His heart had been played too many times. He couldn't afford another heartbreak. He still had to be sure. So while Amaka continued doing her job with quiet strength, Daniel allowed other women into his life. Each one came smiling, each one claiming to love him. He told himself, "The one who stays, even when I have nothing to offer, will be the one I love forever." He had no idea what was coming next. He was about to face 3 different women. 3 different tests, 3 painful lessons. But through all of it, someone was watching him closely, and this time he was watching too. Her name was Linda. She came in with a bright smile and soft words. Daniel met her through a friend who had no idea he could still see. She was tall, classy, and carried herself like a woman who knew what she wanted. From the first day, she acted caring. "I don't care if you're blind," she said sweetly, helping him sit. "I like men with sense and heart." Daniel wore his dark glasses and held his walking stick, nodding quietly. But he was watching her closely. She didn't know. And what Daniel saw early on was simple. Linda was only pretending to like him. There was no real care in her voice, no concern in her eyes. Just a woman trying to play smart, hoping she could walk into a rich man's life and walk away with something big. Within 1 week, her true mission showed. Baby, she said one evening while painting her nails in the living room, I've been thinking, I want to open a boutique, a classy one. I already found the shop space. I just need about 5 million naira to start it. She smiled and leaned closer. Daniel didn't say much. He nodded like a man with no worries. Later that night, he made the transfer. But once the alert entered Linda's phone, her behavior flipped like a light switch. She stopped being sweet. She stopped acting like she cared. Now she was always busy with her phone. She scrolled for hours, laughed at videos, posted selfies, and barely remembered she had a man sitting in the same house. Linda, Daniel would call softly from the couch. No answer. Linda, he'd say again. She would sigh loudly. What again now? Am I your maid? That statement stayed in Daniel's heart, and it hurt, not because of what she said, but because of how easily she said it. One afternoon, Daniel pretended to knock over his stick. Linda was just a few steps away, lying on the couch. She didn't move. Amaka, the maid, came rushing from the other room. Sir, are you okay? She asked, picking up the stick. Daniel smiled slightly. Yes, thank you, Amaka. Later that day, Linda walked into the dining room during lunch. So, I want to stock up the boutique now, she said casually, chewing gum. 10 million naira will do. Daniel stayed silent. I'm serious, she continued. I already gave your name to the business CAC. It's a win-win. Just send it. I'm sorry, Daniel said, still calm. I won't give you 10 million. Linda dropped her fork. What? I said no. She stood up sharply. So because you gave me 5 million, you think you own me? You're blind, Daniel, not broke. Don't act like 10 million is a big deal for you. Daniel didn't say a word. That evening she locked herself in the guest room. The next morning she left without warning. Packed her clothes, her wigs, her makeup, everything. No message, no goodbye. She was gone. Daniel sat in his usual chair, silent. He had seen it coming. He just wanted to be sure. She was never really here for him, only for what she could gain. Later that day, Amaka brought him his tea. Quiet, careful, no makeup, no fake talk. You haven't eaten, sir, she said gently. I'll eat soon, he replied. She turned to leave, but noticed the sweat on his neck. She walked over and switched on the fan, then opened the curtain to let fresh air in. Simple, thoughtful things. No request followed, no phone glued to her hand, just care. Daniel leaned back in his chair, and as the fan blew softly, he thought about the difference. While Linda asked for 10 million and stormed out when she didn't get it, Amaka quietly made sure he was okay. He didn't say a word, but deep inside something shifted. He wasn't done testing, but something told him. The right person might already be close. It was a Saturday full of joy and noise, a wedding Daniel could not avoid. His childhood friend, Maxwell, was getting married, and the ceremony was grand. Daniel arrived in a black G-Wagon with his PA and 2 security men. As usual, he wore his signature dark glasses and held his white walking stick. The MC announced his arrival like a celebrity. Ladies and gentlemen, make way for the great Mr. Daniel Okechukwu. Guests clapped and stared. Daniel smiled gently, his PA guiding him to his reserved seat. A few moments later, the dollar notes started raining from his hands. His PA handed him the bundles, and Daniel sprayed like a king. Even while pretending to be blind, his presence commanded the room. That was when she noticed him. Her name was Sandra, a tall, well-dressed woman with smooth skin, brown eyes, and a bold red lipstick. She was seated at a nearby table with 2 other ladies. Unlike others who were whispering and gossiping about Daniel's wealth, Sandra got up and walked to him confidently. Hi, she said, standing beside him. Daniel turned slightly, adjusting his glasses. Hello, who am I speaking with? Sandra, I saw you spraying money like someone with 2 good eyes, she said playfully. Daniel smiled. I have good ears. They help me know where the music is. She laughed. It was a soft, clean laugh. They talked for a few more minutes. No pressure, just calm conversation. She didn't overdo it. She didn't beg for selfies. She didn't even ask for his number. But Daniel asked for hers. Can I take you out for dinner this evening? He asked, still in character. Sandra paused a bit, surprised. Then she said, sure. Why not? His PA stepped in, handled the arrangement, and later that evening they met at one of the finest restaurants in the city. The dinner was smooth. Sandra talked about her love for interior design and how she ran a small showroom. She didn't ask about his money or his condition. She even joked about how he used his fork like a pro. Daniel watched carefully. She seemed honest, natural, but he had seen good actors before. After dinner, he invited her to his house. She agreed. When they arrived, his security opened the gate. His PA helped him inside. Sandra followed, looking around quietly. She complimented the decor but didn't run to take photos or act impressed. They sat in the lounge. "I have to say," Sandra said, sipping juice, "you carry yourself well. You don't let your condition slow you down." Daniel nodded. "One has to keep moving." Then she leaned back, crossed her legs and said, "If you don't mind me asking, how do you choose people to trust?" Daniel paused. That question made him uncomfortable. "I just watch. Listen," he said. Sandra nodded. "Smart. In a world like this, trust is expensive." The evening ended without drama. She didn't ask him for anything. She didn't beg to spend the night. She stood, thanked him for the evening, and said good night. Daniel stood too, with his stick in hand. "Can I call you tomorrow?" "Yes," she said, smiling. "Please do." After she left, Daniel took off his glasses and sat in silence. The room was quiet. He leaned back on the couch, eyes fixed on nothing in particular. No words, no thoughts, just stillness. Sandra returned the following weekend. Daniel had invited her casually. She accepted without hesitation. She arrived on Friday evening with a small overnight bag and a confident smile. The guards let her in and his PA greeted her at the door. Daniel was already seated in the lounge, dark glasses on, walking stick beside him. "I recognize that perfume," he said with a soft smile. "It suits you." Sandra chuckled. At least someone noticed. They ate dinner together that night, calm, quiet, with music playing softly in the background. She talked about her plans, shared stories, and asked a few surface-level questions. Nothing too deep. No pressure. Later she retired to one of the guest rooms. Daniel went to his own room with his PA. So far, everything felt normal. But by Saturday morning, things started to shift. Sandra came out of her room late, still in her nightwear, and walked straight to the dining table. She didn't greet the staff. "Where's my tea?" she asked, her tone dry. Amaka brought it silently. Daniel sat across from her, listening carefully, pretending to fumble for his fork. After breakfast, Sandra casually asked, "Can I check out the rooms upstairs?" "Feel free," Daniel replied. She went up alone. That was when things began. In Daniel's study, she opened drawers carefully. She moved with confidence, like someone who had done this before. She found an envelope with stacks of cash, fresh, clean notes. She took some and quickly slid them into her purse. She didn't take all, just enough not to raise alarm. She returned to the living room smiling. "You've got a lovely house," she said, stretching. "So peaceful." Daniel nodded, quiet as ever. Later that evening, she walked into his dressing area when she thought he was asleep. The jewelry box was right there, unlocked. Her fingers moved fast. One wristwatch, a gold bracelet, a chain. She looked around. Daniel lay on the bed, his back turned, wearing his dark glasses as usual. Still. Silent. She assumed he was asleep. She assumed he didn't see. But he saw everything. On Sunday, Sandra got even more comfortable. She sat in the lounge flipping channels, chose what she wanted to watch, and made casual comments about how the furniture arrangement needed a woman's touch. She gave Amaka instructions like she was staff. She didn't once ask if Daniel needed anything. Even when he coughed slightly and shifted his body on the chair, she didn't offer help or check on him. Amaka noticed, but she said nothing. Daniel didn't react either. He was watching, quietly. That night passed slowly. The air in the house felt different. On Monday morning, Sandra came out fully dressed, her small bag in hand. "No breakfast for me," she said, picking up her purse. "I've got some errands." Daniel stood near the door, his walking stick in hand. "Thanks for coming," he said. "Any time," she replied with a wink. She stepped outside and entered her car without looking back. Daniel stood there for a moment, listening to the engine fade away. Then he walked back into the house, removed his glasses, and sat in silence. He went to his room, opened his drawer. Cash gone. He checked his jewelry box, several pieces missing. He didn't shout, he didn't panic. He picked up his phone, opened her number, and blocked it. No explanation, no argument, no call. He simply erased her presence from his life. It was over. Just like that. Daniel was bored. For days the house had been quiet. Too quiet. Amaka moved around softly as usual. Nothing changed with her. She still brought his tea without being told. She folded his clothes neatly. She swept the hallway before sunrise. But Daniel, he felt restless. Then the phone rang. It was Cynthia. He remembered her from an art exhibition a few months ago. She had a loud laugh, asked bold questions, and left a strong impression. They didn't talk much after that, but she had saved his number. "Daniel," her voice screamed through the phone, "you just disappeared." "I've been here," he replied, smiling faintly. "I'm coming over tomorrow," she said. "Just 2 days. I won't even disturb you." He didn't say no. The next afternoon, Cynthia showed up with bright red lipstick, gold bangles, and 2 handbags like she was staying a week. The guards let her in. His PA greeted her. Amaka opened the door without a word. "Ah, this your maid is still here?" Cynthia said, laughing. "You really like old people around you?" Amaka gave a small nod and stepped aside. Cynthia walked in like she owned the place. This your house is fine, Shah. I forgot you were living like this." Daniel was seated in the lounge with his glasses on and walking stick resting against the arm of the chair. "You still carry yourself well," she said, sitting next to him. "Even like this." Daniel only smiled. That evening, she requested a bottle of wine from the kitchen and spent the night on video calls with friends. Her voice echoed down the hallway. "Can you lower your voice a bit?" Daniel asked softly. "Ah, sorry, I forgot you were resting, but I thought you couldn't see," she said, smirking. Amaka quietly brought him tea. Cynthia gave her a cold look. "You're training this maid too much," she muttered. The next morning, she shouted for Amaka over a rumpled dress. "My clothes are rough. What's this nonsense? What does she even do here?" Amaka collected the dress and quietly ironed it. She didn't argue. Later that day, Daniel heard the back door creak open. He sat quietly by the hallway window. Low voices, a man's laugh, Cynthia's whisper. They didn't know Daniel was nearby. She had brought someone in. The man stayed about an hour, then left through the same door he came in. Daniel said nothing. He simply got up and went to his room. He didn't speak to anyone about it. That evening, Cynthia walked around the house like nothing happened. She asked the cook for fried rice. She watched TV in the lounge. She took selfies in front of the piano. When Amaka tried to sweep the hallway, Cynthia stopped her. "Do that later," she said. "I'm relaxing." Daniel stayed silent. He just watched. And though Cynthia had said she was only staying 2 days, she didn't leave. By the 3rd day, Cynthia was still in the house. She moved around like she owned the place, walking barefoot in her silk robe, yelling into her phone, giving orders to the staff like she paid their salary. Amaka kept her distance. Daniel said nothing, but he was watching everything. That night, around 9:30, Daniel sat quietly in his room. His lights were off. The hallway was silent. Then he heard it again. Footsteps, soft whispers, a man's voice, laughter. He stood slowly and walked toward the hallway, guided by the tip of his walking stick. The voices grew clearer as he moved toward the guest room. Daniel stopped just beside the door and listened. "You go just spend small time," Cynthia whispered. The man laughed again. "He day sleep?" "He's blind," she said. "He doesn't even know what's going on in this house." Daniel gripped his walking stick. He didn't knock. He pushed the door open and stepped in. Cynthia and the man froze. The man was seated on the edge of the bed, lacing his shoes. Cynthia stood up fast, shocked. "What is this?" Daniel asked calmly. "Ah, Daniel, what are you doing here?" she stuttered. Daniel turned his head slightly. "That's my question." She blinked, then frowned. "So you're now monitoring me? You can't even see. What's your own?" The man stood awkwardly, trying to leave. Daniel stepped aside. "You can go." The man rushed out quickly, not saying a word. Cynthia crossed her arms. So what if I invited someone? I'm not your prisoner. You think I'll stay here with one blind man forever? Daniel stayed quiet. You don't even talk. You just sit down like one old statue. No fun, no spark, she hissed. You think because you have money, I should die in this boring house with a stick-carrying mummy. At that point, Amaka walked in from the hallway, holding a towel she had gone to hang outside. She stopped and heard everything. Madam, that's enough, Amaka said firmly. Cynthia turned. Who asked you to talk? This is between me and your boss. Amaka walked closer. Then talk to him with respect. Oh, please, Cynthia snapped. You're a maid, not a bodyguard. Amaka didn't flinch. Yes, I'm a maid, but even I know this man deserves respect. He gave you shelter. He welcomed you into his home. Cynthia clapped her hands slowly. Is it your house? No, Amaka replied, but I live here, and I won't watch you insult him like this. Cynthia scoffed. What will you do? I'm asking you to leave, now. Excuse me? You heard me. Pack your things. Leave this house tonight. Cynthia's mouth hung open. Daniel, are you hearing this? Daniel nodded. She speaks for me. Cynthia stared at both of them, stunned. Then she turned to grab her bag. This house is cursed anyway. I don't know what I was doing here. She stormed out, heels clicking angrily on the tiles. They heard her dragging her suitcase through the hallway and slamming the front door as she left. Silence returned. Amaka stood still, breathing slowly. Daniel sat back down on the edge of the bed. You didn't have to do that, he said quietly. Yes, I did, Amaka replied. She crossed the line. Daniel didn't respond. He just nodded slowly. Then he whispered, Thank you. Amaka turned and walked out of the room, leaving him alone. The house was quiet again. No shouting, no perfume, no unwanted visitors, just Daniel, and the one person who had never changed. The house felt calm again. The noise was gone. No shouting, no high heels on tiles, no perfume choking the air. Amaka moved around like she always did, quietly, carefully, without drawing attention. She swept the living room early, dusted the shelves, arranged Daniel's shoes even when he hadn't worn them. She refilled his water jug before he asked. She adjusted his pillow when she noticed him resting his neck awkwardly. She just noticed things. Daniel did too. He began to pay more attention, not just to what she did, but how she did it. She never complained, never sighed, never rolled her eyes when he called. She didn't raise her voice or ask questions that weren't necessary. She simply made sure he was okay. And Daniel started to feel something. It wasn't loud or fast. It was slow, soft, but it was real. One evening after dinner, he sat in the lounge longer than usual. Amaka came to clear his tray. Thank you, he said. She nodded and smiled lightly. You're welcome, sir. As she turned to leave, he stopped her. Amaka. She turned back. Yes, sir? Do you like perfumes? She tilted her head slightly. Yes, but I haven't used one in a long time. Daniel nodded. Okay. She didn't understand what he meant, but she left it alone. The next day, she continued her normal work. She washed, ironed, and helped the cook prepare Daniel's lunch. By evening, Daniel's PA returned from a short trip and handed Daniel a small package. Daniel smiled. Give it to her, he said. A few minutes later, Amaka was in the kitchen, wiping the counter, when the PA walked in and dropped a gift bag in front of her. From boss, he said, and left. Amaka opened it slowly. Inside was a beautiful bottle of perfume and a brand new iPhone 16. Her eyes widened. She stood still for a long second, then walked out of the kitchen and straight to the lounge. Daniel was seated, glasses on, walking stick beside him, just like always. She didn't say anything. She rushed to him and hugged him, full arms tight. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, she said, her voice shaking with surprise. Daniel smiled. Do you like the gift? He asked. Yes, I love it. Thank you, sir. This is too much. I wasn't expecting it, she said, stepping back and looking at the phone again. Daniel chuckled lightly. You've done more than enough to deserve it. Amaka held the gift close, smiling like a child on her birthday. The rest of the evening felt different. She cooked with more energy. She hummed while working. and Daniel sat quietly in his chair, hearing her soft voice drift from the kitchen. Something had changed. It wasn't just a gift, it was a connection, real, unspoken, and growing. The morning sun lit up the dining area. Daniel sat alone, eating quietly as Amaka moved around, checking what was left in the kitchen. "We're almost out of rice," she said, "and no tomatoes. I should go to the market today." Daniel nodded. "All right." She packed her small bag, tied her scarf, and left shortly after. Once she was gone, Daniel picked up his phone and dialed. "Kelvin," he said quietly. "Ah, Daniel, I thought you forgot me." "I need your help," Daniel replied. "I want you to see someone." "Who?" "Amaka. She'll be at the Central Market soon. Try and talk to her. Just observe." Kelvin chuckled. "You want me to test your maid?" "Just talk to her. That's all." Kelvin didn't argue. "I'll let you know how it goes." About an hour later, Amaka was at the market. She moved quickly from one stall to another, holding a shopping list, pricing vegetables, and selecting food items. She was dressed simply, nothing flashy, just clean and modest. Like always. As she reached the tomato stand, a man stepped beside her. "Hi," Kelvin said, smiling. "Good afternoon," she replied politely. "You look very beautiful," he said. "Are you married?" Amaka looked at him briefly. "No." Kelvin smiled again. "That's good news." She didn't respond. "Maybe we can talk sometime," he continued. "I'm not a bad guy. Just want to know you." Amaka handed her money to the seller and moved to the next stall without replying. Kelvin followed for a bit. He tried again. "Can I have your number? We can be friends." "No, thank you," she said calmly. "I'm serious. I'm not just talking." "I'm not interested," she added, still focused on her shopping. Kelvin stopped following. He watched her disappear into the crowd. Back at the house, Daniel sat in the lounge, his walking stick beside him, glasses on. He wasn't anxious, but he waited. An hour later, Amaka returned, carrying 2 shopping bags. She walked straight to the kitchen, unpacked everything neatly, then came to Daniel with his usual tea. "Welcome back," he said. "Thank you, sir," she replied, smiling. "You got everything?" "Yes. Even got the pepper at a better price." Daniel nodded. She walked away quietly. That evening, Amaka swept the hallway, wiped the windows, and brought his dinner on time. She noticed the loose button on his shirt and mended it. She kept the generator running when the lights blinked. She closed the windows when it started to rain. She didn't change, not even a little. And Daniel watched, silently, closely. It was a calm Sunday morning. Amaka had gone to church early, as she always did. She wore a simple, clean dress and carried a small Bible. Nothing flashy, no makeup, just her usual quiet self. Daniel sat on the balcony, sipping tea slowly. He had noticed something different in the way he missed her when she wasn't around. Around noon, Amaka returned. The sun was hot, and her footsteps were soft as she approached the gate. Just as she reached the entrance, someone stepped out from a nearby car and blocked her path. It was Kelvin. Again. He smiled casually. "Good afternoon, beautiful. Coming from church?" Amaka adjusted her bag. "Yes, can I help you?" "I know this might be the second time, but I really mean it. I'm serious. You're special." She stepped aside. "Please, I'm not interested." "I'm not trying to offend you," Kelvin said, still smiling. "I just think you're the kind of woman any man would be lucky to have." "I already like someone," she said, calm but clear. "Does he know?" She didn't answer. She simply walked past him and entered the gate. Kelvin stood there for a moment, watching. Then he pulled out his phone and called Daniel. Inside the house, Daniel was in his bedroom, seated on the edge of the bed with his phone in hand. He answered on the second ring. "Omo, this girl is tough." Kelvin laughed through the speaker. Daniel chuckled. "She ignored you again." "She told me she likes someone else." Daniel burst into laughter. "Told you she was different," he said. "My guy, you better marry that girl. I've tested a lot of women, but this one." Kelvin paused. "She's wife material." Daniel laughed louder now. "I knew it. I just needed to be sure." He leaned back on the bed, still holding the phone to his ear. I've been pretending to be blind for almost 6 months, he continued. But this girl, she's the only one who didn't treat me like trash. She didn't even blink when I asked for help. Kelvin's voice came through clearly. You're lucky, bro. You found the one. But Daniel didn't know. Right outside his bedroom door, Amaka was standing silently, holding a clean towel she had come to drop. She had heard everything. Her hand was still on the doorknob. She stood there frozen, her heart racing. Her mind replayed everything she just heard. Daniel wasn't blind, and all this time he had been testing her. She slowly pushed the door open. Daniel sat up quickly, phone still in his hand. Their eyes met. For the first time ever, really met. No glasses, no act. He froze. Amaka stood there, her voice shaking. So, you can see. Daniel dropped the phone slowly. Amaka. You lied to me, she said, her eyes filling with tears. All this while? Please let me explain. Was I just another test? No, Daniel said quickly. It started like that, yes. But it became real. She stepped back, chest rising and falling. You let me carry food to you, lead you around, defend you. And you were watching me like a movie. Daniel stood up. I never meant to hurt you. I just didn't trust anyone. After everything I've been through, Amaka shook her head. I thought you were different too. There was a long silence. Daniel took one small step forward. Amaka, please. But she turned and walked out of the room. This time she didn't say anything more. She didn't cry out loud. She just walked, straight down the hallway, past the stairs and into her room. The house felt cold again. Daniel stood there, phone still in his hand. The test was over. The secret was out. The house was quiet again, but this time it wasn't peaceful. Amaka stayed in her room all day. No footsteps in the hallway, no soft voice asking Daniel if he wanted tea, no gentle knock on the door in the evening, just silence. Daniel sat alone in the lounge, holding his walking stick loosely in his hand. The same stick he no longer needed. Not really. He had taken off his glasses too. What was the point now? He had nothing to hide. Later that evening, he stood up slowly and walked to her room. He knocked twice. No answer. He knocked again. Amaka, please, can I talk to you? A few seconds passed, then the door opened. She stood there, quiet, tired, but calm. Daniel looked at her, his voice soft. Can I come in? She nodded once and stepped aside. He walked in and sat on the edge of the small couch in her room. I know what I did was wrong, he began. I lied. I tested you. I pretended to be blind when I wasn't. And you didn't deserve that. Amaka didn't speak. Daniel continued, I've been hurt before, used, lied to. Women came for my money, not for me. And after a while, I couldn't trust anyone again. He looked up at her. But then you came. And you were different. Even when I gave you nothing, you gave me everything. Amaka's eyes softened a little. I didn't plan to fall for you, he said. But I did. She sat on the bed, silent, still listening. I was scared that if I told you the truth, I'd lose you. But now I realize I almost lost you anyway. There was a pause. Then Amaka looked at him and said quietly, I forgive you. Daniel looked up, surprised. She nodded slowly. Every other person would have done the same thing you did. You just wanted to protect your heart. Daniel breathed out slowly, deeply. Thank you, he said. She smiled now, a small one, but real. And just like that, something shifted. 2 weeks later, Daniel took her out for dinner. Not as a boss and maid, but as two people in love. They sat in a quiet rooftop restaurant. Amaka wore a soft blue gown. Daniel wore a suit, no glasses, no stick, just himself. They laughed, talked, held hands. It was simple. It was real. A few weeks later, Daniel took her on a surprise trip to Dubai. It was her first time leaving the country. They visited the tallest building, rode camels in the desert, and walked barefoot on white sand by the ocean. Amaka couldn't stop smiling. One evening, as the sun began to set, Daniel took her to a private dinner arranged on a rooftop overlooking the city. Just a few close friends were there. Amaka thought it was just another outing, until Daniel stood up, walked over to her, and dropped to one knee. She gasped. He held up the ring. "I may not be perfect," he said, "but I know what real love is now, and it's you." Tears rolled down her cheeks. "Yes," she whispered. The small group clapped. They hugged tightly. And just like that, everything they had been through made sense. Today, Daniel and Amaka are happily married. No secrets, no more tests, just two people who found love in the most unexpected way. He still calls her my peace, and she still brings him tea. Not because he needs it, but because she wants to. Because love, real love, sees clearly, even with closed eyes. The end.